cleft palate. I was in an incubator for 7 days. My mother, only when I was in my 20s, told me this whole story of how I was not supposed to live. A Catholic priest was supposed to come, and my family wasn't Catholic, so that didn't happen. But the expectancy of life was not good, and yet God had a plan. And ironically, his plan was for me to use my voice to speak, and yet that was the very liability that I came into this world with. So no child can be written off. No child can be said, well, that won't work. In coming weeks, we're going to look at the life of Fanny Crosby, the great hymn writer, who, despite her blindness, wrote 8,000 hymns. Folks, I think you and I all can see quite well, and I don't know that this whole group could come up with a single hymn. Fanny Crosby also was honored to meet 9 U.S. presidents, and it wasn't by coincidence. These presidents wanted her to come to the White House. She was of such note that they wanted her presence with them, and yet here she was blind as a child and unable to see, but so prolific. And so there's no child that is so profound that it cannot be used or have great purpose. I'd like for you to hold your place in Proverbs 24 and turn to Psalm 82. Hold your place in Proverbs 24 and turn to Psalm 82. It's just a few pages to the left, verses 3 and 4. Psalm 82, verses 3 and 4. We've read that if we faint in the day of adversity, our strength is small. If we fail to deliver those that are being carried to death, or if we say we just didn't know, that those are signs of fainting and evidences that we have. But in Psalm 82, verses 3 and 4, it says this: defend the poor and the fatherless, do justice to the afflicted and needy, deliver the poor and needy, rid them out of the hand of the wicked. We have been challenged by the Lord to do no less than to come to the aid, to the rescue of all those that are unable to defend themselves. In Bible times, the poor had no voice in government. The poor had no representation. We live in an amazing country where we do have, despite economic status, we have equal representation through our voting, through our ability to voice our opinion. But yet the Bible tells us that we're to come to the defense and deliver those that are in need and those that would be taken advantage of by the wicked. So what would cause us today, now that we're no longer ignorant of these issues, what would cause us to not take action? I believe ignorance is one, not knowing what's going on. My prayer is that there is some New Testament churches near this high school in Memphis, Tennessee, that could minister to these girls. They need to be loved and taught truth, but not just someone else doing it. The church has got to roll up its sleeve. You and I, we've got to roll up our sleeves and become a part of the solution rather than just pointing out the problem. And that's probably been one of my greatest failings, is identifying problems but not taking that next step of taking action. A year ago, the Golden Valley Door of Hope came and during this Sunday morning service shared about their vision to minister to women with crisis pregnancies. And Eric Hankins gave several options of volunteering, manning a phone bank, serving up there, financial support. And I want to continue to use that as an outlet for us. That is a tangible way, a real way for you this morning. If you're thinking, well, what could I do? I just don't know what to do. You could volunteer at a place like the Golden Valley Door of Hope. There's brochures in the back for them, their phone number. They're located in Clinton. They have a nice office. And they have a dream. I just spoke with Eric this week to get an update. They have a dream of purchasing an ultrasound machine for the clinic. And Eric shared a year ago the hope of that. He said, we're on the way there. So the goal is to have the ultrasound machine, and the percentage is over 90% of women who are considering an abortion. If they have the ultrasound, 90% will not follow through with the abortion because they see the heartbeat, and with these newer ultrasound machines, they see definition of a face and thumbs and all the stuff that babies are, and they delight in that, and they want to carry that child. So we could be a part of that solution as well. And it's not some far-off place. We're not mailing our money somewhere else. Young ladies in our community would go to this very crisis pregnancy center. So I believe it's a tangible way to make a difference. Now, why else may we not participate or make a difference? I had to look at myself on all these. One of them is the enormity of the situation. The last several presidential campaigns have had the pro-life, pro-choice tension there, and it doesn't seem to be resolved, and it goes all the way back to the Roe versus Wade decision of 1973, and it just seems too big. What difference can I make? How can I change anything? Well, I want to remind you, first of all, that decision was far from unanimous. It was a split decision. The United States Supreme Court did not even agree that it was the right thing to do. And I want to read what I read to the Henry County Right to Life rally last year. I was invited to speak at the Clinton courthouse, and I shared with them this, that Justice Byron White, one of the U.S. Supreme Court justices, wrote the dissenting opinion of that case, Roe versus Wade. And he writes this: "With all due respect, I dissent. I find nothing in the language or history of the United States Constitution to support the court's judgment. The court simply fashions and announces a new constitutional right for pregnant mothers with scarcely any reason or authority for its action." That sounds like some fundamentalist preacher now saying, "Oh, they didn't have a right to do it, and it's wrong." The court said that. Justice White and Justice William Rehnquist both said this is a flawed decision. It is not constitutional. And I believe with prayer and political voice, we can make a difference. He goes on to say one more thing. The court apparently values the convenience of a pregnant woman more than the continued existence and development of the life she carries. Now, Dustin doesn't know this, but when he stated that sequence of how do we determine death, our county coroner will go and determine death by two primary ways: a lack of heartbeat, a pulse, and then brain activity if it's in a hospital setting. Yet both of those, as Dustin so correctly stated, both of those are present at the very inception of birth. The heartbeat and brain waves are there early on. And they keep backing up when they can find it, and it's only because our technology, it's there from the very moment. It's just that we're not able to always see everything. The Bible says that John the Baptist leapt in his womb when he heard the voice of Mary carrying Jesus. Babies are valuable in the womb and out of the womb. So the size of the problem often causes people to not get involved. We give up, we throw up our hands, and we say, well, if Washington can't settle it, and this administration says this, and these people say this, what can I do? I believe you can do what David did. When David heard that Goliath was mocking God, when David heard that Goliath was taunting God's people, David said, "Who is this? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine? How are you?" And if you remember, the king and David's brothers were all listening to Goliath and not doing anything. It took a little David to come up and say, "I will deal with this man in the Lord's strength." And let me emphasize that you and I, if we get all emotional this morning and charge out of here with our rubber bands, we're not going to make any difference. If it's emotionally driven, if it's just, for the hour or two and it kind of slips back. But if we go out of here consecrated and serious about making a difference and letting God use us, I believe in that same spirit. David simply went and said, "God, I'm a little boy. In fact, King Saul said, "You can't fight Goliath. Your buddy